Well, how about now? Actually, yeah, I think I just fixed it. All right, everybody in the chat, let us know if you can hear us. Now is there... We're playing the no audio game again. Yes, we are. Well, how about now? Actually, oh shoot, yeah, I think I just fixed it. All right, everybody in the chat.
There we go, sweet. I hear it.
You're gonna hear double right now. Okay, everything is working well. We can start.
Awesome. Welcome everybody to GitPOAP community call number 3. Super excited to see everyone here. I'm glad that audio is working. We'll play the no audio game probably at the beginning of every community call just for fun. And I am going to introduce our host, Nixo, who is the magic behind all the scenes, and she'll do some other quick intros. Thanks for being here, Nixo.
Very happy to be here. Very happy to be hosting Alex Stokes of the Ethereum Foundation, who is the first person I'm going to introduce. This is Alex Stokes. He's a researcher at the Ethereum Foundation. Right now he is focusing on MEV. Don't know what else he's focusing on, but we can ask him. This is Colfax, co-founder of GitPOAP, Superfizz. Don't think he needs much introduction. He is at EthStaker. Aldo is an engineer at GitPOAP. Burrs is an engineer at GitPOAP. Kayla is our operations lead. Thorsten is also with EthStaker. Jay, co-founder of GitPOAP. And Tyler, also an engineer at GitPOAP. Everybody want to say hi? Cool. I'm going to pass it back to you, Colfax, so you can explain exactly what GitPOAP is.
Sounds good. So for those new to us here, this is our 3rd community call, and our objective for these community calls is featuring open source projects that we're supporting with GitPOAP, and basically creating a place for open source developers to share what they're working on and how people can get involved, and then creating a space for people who are interested in getting involved in Web3 and open source software to come learn about interesting projects that they can work on. And so if you're just new to GitPOAP, you might be wondering what we're all about. What's that funky name? We are a company that's all about supporting the recognition and rewarding of open source software projects and people that are working on open source and other like collaborative efforts. And so what GitPOAP is a platform for software maintainers to award POAPs to their contributors around what people are doing on GitHub, specifically like sending pull requests to different projects and working on different initiatives and things like that. Something that I'm excited about that I'll talk about in just a second is we actually just released a new bot that allows you not only to award POAPs based on just pull requests being merged, but you can now actually tag any issue or any pull request ad hoc and award a POAP to anybody who's contributing, even people that are contributing like non-technical things. So super excited about that. But that's sort of the high-level vision of GitPOAP and what we're building. Quick housekeeping thing before I dive into a few other updates. If you are not a part of it already, go ahead and join the GitPOAP Discord. That's at gitpoap.io/Discord. And head on over to the Join Guild channel and join our guild. We'll be using that for some stuff later in the call. We're going to be distributing a POAP at this call at the end, though, so just stay tuned for that info. If anybody has any questions or wants to say anything during the call, just drop them in the general channel in our Discord, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. And any hard questions that you have, we'll probably have Alex answer them. A couple quick updates from the GitPOAP side. I'm excited to share that we have now issued, or our 2000th GitPOAP has been minted. That happened last night. So pretty excited about that. Now the GitPOAP holder base is up to 728 contributors that have minted their GitPOAPs. There's a number of GitPOAPs still that aren't minted yet. So if you have been contributing to open source, we're now issuing them across 950 repos, mostly in the Ethereum ecosystem. So head on over to gitpoap.io to take a look and see if you're eligible for anything. We also recently announced and awarded a GitPOAP for the first 500 people that have earned GitPOAPs for contributing to open source. So you might have one of those waiting for you too, if you haven't been around the site recently, but you had earned one earlier. This community call is one of many different events that GitPOAP hosts and takes part in. So in order for you to be able to keep closer track of what's going on with our events, we created a public calendar that you can follow along with. I'm going to drop that here in the general channel, our announcement to that. And you can go ahead and subscribe to our Google Calendar, and you'll keep apprised of all the different events that we're doing. We're going to be increasing the frequency of these community calls, just because there's a lot of demand and a lot of projects want to be able to share what they're working on. So we're going to be hosting our next one, most likely 2 weeks from today. And so keep that in mind. That's November 16th. It's likely to be at 11 a.m. Eastern time, just like this call. But we'll put it on the calendar. We'll make an announcement once it's all fully planned out and everything. So I've got 2 features to announce that we built on the GitPOAP side. I've got one exciting integration, and then I'm going to pass it off to Nixo for the core of the call to talk to Alex about MEV-rs. The 2 features I want to share. So we announced both of these recently, one of which is our new user account structure. So now the next time you log into GitPOAP, you'll be able to you'll be prompted to log in again, and you'll be prompted to sign a message with your Ethereum account. And that will be a single message that you need to sign. And then that signature can be used to update any of your future profile updates and things like that. And it's not sending a transaction or anything, and you won't need to keep re-clicking like sign again if you want to feature a different POAP or anything. So we improved the UX there a little bit. As well as now we have a way that you can create a lasting connection between your GitHub account and your address. And that way you can make sure you get updated if you've earned any more GitPOAPs. You can show off your GitHub account actually on your profile. And furthermore, that way we can actually show some more metadata around your contributions. We rolled out these nice borders around showing how much you've contributed to a given project. So there's some more exciting stuff coming there. So next time you head over to GitPOAP, make sure to connect your GitHub account and configure your profile. And the second update that I wanted to share, which I talked about a little bit before, is the GitPOAP bot. So we've had our GitHub GitPOAP bot around for a little while. And the first feature we built for it is if it's installed on a repo, it will comment on each pull request that earns somebody a GitPOAP, so you can share with your community that you're offering this recognition. The new feature that I mentioned a little bit earlier is the ability to tag the GitPOAP bot to award GitPOAPs in an ad hoc manner. And so we're already seeing a number of people using it, basically awarding for things like valuable issues that were submitted, maybe a pull request that didn't get merged, but it sparked some interesting ideas and things like that. So I encourage you to expand sort of the recognition that you're issuing and check out the GitPOAP bot. The last thing before I pass it off is we recently announced our integration with Guild, which I'm super excited about. Guild, for those not familiar, is a platform for creating communities based on on-chain and other off-chain data. They have a ton of integrations where you can actually create gated access to Discord servers, Telegram channels, even GitHub repos. And we're now integrated into Guild so that you can create gated communities based on GitPOAP holdings. So think about what you could do with, say, creating a channel in a Discord server where only your previous contributors can access. You can have more interesting focused discussions. Spam is obviously a big issue on some of these chat platforms and stuff. So I'm excited to see what people are able to build with this Guild integration. I'm also particularly excited to experiment with the GitHub integration. We can create a private repo that can be accessed by everyone, but only anyone, everybody that contributed to a given project, and only people that have contributed to that project will be able to have access. So I'm excited to sort of see what we can do with that as well. So yeah, head on over to guild.xyz if you want to check that out, and you can play around with some different features there, and then feel free to drop into our Discord and ask if you have any questions about that too. So that's it for me on the sort of GitPOAP updates front. I don't know if anybody else has any updates or anything they want to share. If not, we'll dive right into MEV-rs.
Cool.
Sweet.
Alex, I'm curious. Does the Ethereum Foundation have like office space that it makes available to people at the EF? Are you in like an Ethereum Foundation office space, or is this a space that is just like yours?
This is a different office space. There is an office in Berlin that a lot of people go into.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to start off with is your history. I know that you worked at startups in the Bay Area before you were in Ethereum. What were you doing at startups in the Bay Area?
Yeah, that was a little while ago. So basically, like after college, it was very trendy to go work in tech on startups. So that's what I did. And yeah, that kind of got me into the Bay Area. I was in San Francisco for a while, and yeah, working on a bunch of different startups. One of them was basically making these like educational toolkits to like help, like let's say like primary school kids learn how to like program and like build electronics and stuff like this. So we like gamified Minecraft basically, and the way it would work is that if you like solve the level in Minecraft, this was on Raspberry Pi. So the cool thing about that is that it has all these like different IO pins and things that are very easily exposed. So the way that we had it working was that if you would, for example, solve this like challenge in Minecraft, it would also like walk you through how to build like an LED flashlight or something like this. So that was one thing. And then like a little bit later, I, through a friend, found out about another startup that was working on basically applying AI to like make driving safer. And part of that would basically build this like real-time safety data map, this sort of like an overlay to like Google Maps, for example. And then that would kind of flywheel back into an insurance product. And this is, I guess, kind of what I usually say for like, how did you get involved in Ethereum is, looking at like the legal system and its interaction with like technology and things. I saw that there's like a lot that could be improved, or like a lot that was like sort of, there's more that we could desire. And along this time, I got very interested in Ethereum with all the smart contracts thing. It's like, okay, like obviously these things go together somehow. And from there, I just like got more and more interested and fell down the rabbit hole. And now it's like all I think about, for better or worse. So here we are.
I think a lot of us in Web3 can relate to the sentence, "It's all I think about." What was the first project that you were working on in the Web3 space or in Ethereum?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's see. Like the most concrete thing would have been actually like very, very early work on ETH2 that we're now just calling Ethereum. But essentially, way back in the day, the thing that we use the beacon chain for now, managing this validator set and Ethereum consensus, there was even ideas to basically put this management of the validator set into a smart contract itself. So you would just have the proof of work chain. There'd be a set of validators that is managed on chain, and they would finalize this proof of work chain. So my first concrete, I think, contribution to this would have been like a very small piece of this, which was called this like purity checker. And what we mean is there's some form of account abstraction in the early days with this design where validators could say, hey, rather than like, authorize my messages for finality with ECDSA, which is a cryptographic scheme, a signature scheme, let me do whatever I can execute in the EVM. And so to do that, they would basically register their verification code on chain. And the thing is that you need this process to be deterministic. And so to do that, you need to make sure that the actual bytecode that the validator submits has this notion of purity. And what we mean here is, it's just that like if you execute the code, it doesn't like call out to some other contract, it doesn't like check like the staking yields because those change over time, like things like this. It's like very simple, like you have some flexibility because you can like run arbitrary VM code, but it'll do only things like, check the signature, make sure I can provide some like hash or, some preimage to some hash. I don't know. There's like, different things you could imagine. And this was like nice to set the path because now if you fast forward to today, we have a different scheme entirely with like BLS. If you like work in the staking space as well, you've heard of this like BLS signature scheme. And yeah, anyway, point being is that was just like an open source thing, you know, like that was just like basically an issue. I think this was it was like a bounty on Gitcoin actually. And so yeah, I kind of just like, oh, this sounds interesting. This is like kind of a small thing to do. I can like you know, just kind of hack on this just in my free time, so to speak. And yeah, then it's just like pulling a thread and you just get deeper and deeper and deeper.
I love that your work on the Ethereum Foundation started with you working on a bounty on Gitcoin. That's awesome. There are a ton of bounties. There are a ton of bounties that are out there now. I don't know actually what the best bounty platforms are these days. Anybody have any ideas what the best bounty platforms to go look at other bounties are? I'm personally not a developer, so it's not like I'm looking at those. I think the consensus is maybe that people aren't sure either. If you're in the YouTube chat,
I think there are a couple. Just to chime back in, I do think it is pretty cool because like it speaks to like I think some of the values that make the space really important and valuable is that it's like this like very open, collaborative, permissionless setting. So yeah, bounties are cool. I also don't know where to send people, but cool.
Yeah, I always tell people because like I jumped from science to Web3, and people ask me like that's a really large jump. How did you do that? And I always tell people the way to work in Web3 is just start working in it. Like you don't need to wait for somebody to give you permission or a salary. Once you start working in it, people will see you immediately. There's such a shortage of people working in Web3 that as soon as you start working on it, somebody's like, hey, I see that you're interested. I have other stuff for you to do. Cool.
Which is kind of the purpose of this call, by the way. I think we'll get to stuff at the end, but if you want to help, I have plenty that could be done.
I would say, yeah, not a bounty platform, but like GitPOAP is a great place to go. These community calls, the specific purpose is like giving an entry point for people into the ecosystem. So instead of going to a bounty platform, you should help Alex build MEV-rs, which we'll tell you about soon.
Speaking of MEV, Alex, can you give us a short explanation of what MEV is? There's a lot of conversation about MEV, and I think that there are a very few amount of people who actually like on a base level understand what MEV is.
Sure. So yeah, it is like quite a big topic. We can start from the very beginning, which is like MEV, this like initialism. What does that even mean? And back in the day, it meant miner extractable value. So again, if you're familiar with Ethereum, there are these actors, especially in like the proof of work world, called miners. And what the miners do is they're the ones that are forming consensus. They're like building blocks. They're actually doing a lot of different things. And like part of the developments that are interesting here is that we're actually like unbundling a lot of these roles. But either way, there's this thing called a miner, this like role in the network. And they're tasked with getting transactions, putting them into blocks, and then adding blocks to the chain. And there's like some rules they have to follow. But you know, in short, this is like what a blockchain protocol is. So miners are doing this thing. And it turns out that, especially as you get to like more sort of like expressive or like stateful blockchains like Ethereum, the way that you pack transactions in these blocks matters a lot. And this is because, you know, if you have a transaction that gets on chain, it like changes its global state some way. And it turns out that can actually have effects for everyone else. So a simple thing here is thinking about like arbitrage with like decentralized exchanges. So like if I have a Uniswap pool, I make some trade against the pool, you know, what they say is it unbalances the pool. There's some like market price that the pool is at, and my trade basically nudges it away from that. That's just like how the mathematics of it work. And what this means now is that if the market price, you know, somewhere else, say like on a centralized exchange, is out of line with that, there's now this arbitrage opportunity. And so now someone's incentivized to go basically realize this arb. Yeah, so this is an example of, you know, what we mean when we say like the extractable value bit, because in order to do this, I basically need to get my transaction, you know, relative to, well, okay, so someone who wants to capture this value needs to get their transaction someplace relative to mine. And there's like front running, so, you know, I can somehow profit ahead of you. There's back running, I can basically profit before you. There's different types of things. So like another type of MEV is liquidations, where basically a lot of the way these systems work is that they have these Oracle updates that come on chain. So like, let's say there's like a chain link update or something that updates the price of ETH. This then could like trickle to like MakerDAO, for example, where you have a bunch of debt drawn against this ETH. And if you have a debt position that is too risky now because of this Oracle update, you can capture these auctions, and there's usually some finder's fee, which is why people care about them. And the thing is that to get this finder's fee, only one person will get it. And if you think about it, the way you want to do this is you want to get your liquidation transaction right behind the Oracle update transaction. And so I'm like rambling now into different types of them, but the point being is that there's someone building a block, and there's all sorts of ways in which different people can like extract value or capture value. Extract, I think, is kind of a problematic word, but that's a whole different conversation. There's ways you can like capture value sort of in these like open permissionless systems based on the state and transactions around the state and all this. And so it even gets more complex because, the way these blockchains work is they are permissionless. And so because of this, I just send like a swap transaction into the mempool. Someone else might try then to like back run that transaction. Someone else could have another swap, and it could like redo the whole thing. And so you have this like very like dynamic, chaotic process happening in this like global distributed setting. And yeah, it can get hairy pretty quickly.
So what I'm hearing is that there are a bunch of transactions in the mempool, and correct me if I'm wrong, and the people putting together these transactions or putting together the bundles look at it and find a bunch of different strategies to exploit what transactions are happening in the way that they're ordering it. But that also creates like this economic equilibrium that brings things to an equilibrium, like Uniswap prices, for example.
Right. So yeah, and so that's the thing is like people like maybe hear MEV, hear like bad associations, but like the first order, there's no sort of morals of MEV. It's just like in many cases, well, I mean, in a lot of cases, there are analogs in the traditional world where it's like we accept like, hey, when hedge funds are like doing their things, they're actually like making markets more efficient. So if you believe that sort of hypothesis about the world, then they're actually doing a good thing, right? There's no, I would be careful about sort of like value judgments people place on this stuff because like for a lot of these things, it's just how these like economic systems work. And there's a way in which you can say it like actually leads to like better welfare for the whole system when these different actors, we call them searchers, are doing their job.
Okay.
So yeah.
Explain to me real quick if the thing that enables this is the fact that they can reorder transactions into whatever order they want. Why can't the people building those bundles, or like why can't the protocol level just say transactions have to be first in, first out from the mempool? So first transaction in has to be first transaction out to get rid of those exploitation opportunities.
Right. So yeah, the idea here is that, okay, like if I tell you that, hey, I send a transaction and there could be this like someone, whoever, it's again, these are like public peer-to-peer systems. Like someone out in the world can like try to play these games to get my transaction, in some location relative to yours. Why don't we just say, okay, instead of that, then I sort of provide this service where transactions are processed first in, first out, meaning like, if we go around to like square on Zoom, then like we kind of each have our chance to go. And as long as we enforce this rule, then like there's no way to do, for example, like front running, which is this situation I mentioned where you could basically move the price disfavorably against someone before they get to their trade end. So this is actually like very, I think there's kind of a lot of stuff here. So there is some like research into what they call fair ordering protocols, where they basically want to do exactly this. There's some work here. I think, okay. So there are solutions. Like I personally don't really think they kind of address the problem. Like first, what is fair? And this now gets into the whole different question of like how we even use the systems in the first place. But putting that to the side, like I think, at least the way that I think about MEV, and this was the point I was going to make a second ago, where we've talked about the low level details, but there's now this like system view where like now you can just say, okay, we have MEV as this like quantity, and it has implications for like for example, the security of the consensus of the blockchain. Because if there's like a block over here that has a bunch of MEV, I can now, rather than extend the chain and build on top of that one, I can try to reorg that block and capture the transactions, right? And like orphan it and do that for myself. And I'm very directly incentivized to do this, right? Because of the profit from the MEV. And so the question now is like, yeah, what do we do about this? And I kind of went on a tangent, but the thing is like MEV is like, it touches everything. And I guess the point I want to make here is that you can have these schemes to maybe like constrain MEV within like a subsystem, but as long as these systems are permissionless, like to the extent they are permissionless, all you're going to do in these situations is move the MEV to the edges of, for example, this fair ordering gadget, and then it'll still be there for someone else to capture and play these games with. And if anything, it makes it much harder to extract. So, right, that's one thing, and I know this is maybe a lot, but another thing to answer your question more directly, like why don't we have some sort of like vertical actor that does this? And the short answer here is just that like there's no way to have this like global decentralized fair ordering, simply because this is what we have blockchains for, right? Like the reason we have a blockchain is to take what's in the mempool and like make it all like one sort of serial history. In order to like have some shared notion of first in, first out in the mempool, we would like need the blockchain, right? Like you almost like need a blockchain for your blockchain, and it's kind of what I was saying a second ago, where you're just moving the MEV somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. Follow-up question. Why can't all the transactions be blind? So like, why can't somebody put out a transaction that says, here's the fee that I'm willing to pay for it? I'm not going to show you what's in the transaction.
Right. So I think this is actually a very interesting like research direction. I think we might see rollups in the future that kind of do this sort of thing. In general, there's this trade-off between like the information that a given transaction has and like its privacy, right? And there's like some trade-off here. So people talk about like private Uniswap or something like this. And the thing is that like if Uniswap, like if the state of Uniswap is perfectly private, then like I don't know what the prices are, so like I don't even know how to use it, right? That doesn't work. Then like if individual trades are private, well, this still like doesn't really make sense because I don't know which transactions need to like go in which order to like use the thing, and so. You could imagine there's like this like speculative or an optimistic execution where you just try and hope, but that seems to like add a lot of waste to the system, because I think in general, you won't be like close enough to the current state to actually make things make sense. Yeah. So there's a lot here. There's like a trade-off. There's a spectrum, right? So you could imagine like revealing some information. I think there's like an interesting direction around having transactions somehow reveal more over time, and this actually basically like helps you like sort of negotiate the MEV that you carry in a given transaction.
Okay, so the current process for putting together or putting a transaction on chain, searcher puts together a bundle, hands it to the block builder. Block builder builds a full block, gives it to the validator, and the validator includes or signs that and makes it ready for inclusion on the chain. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, right. This is sort of like the PBS vision of the world. Even before we get into that, like it's worth noting that there's still the public mempool. So like if I just want to like have a simple ETH send, these types of transactions usually don't carry a lot of MEV. And so I can just, go to MetaMask or however, go to my local node. I can gossip that transaction and it gets to the mempool like it usually does, and we're good to go. Separately, we're seeing this development that we want to basically, kind of like I was saying a little bit ago, we want to separate out like this notion of building a block from the validator who's proposing a block and forming a consensus around the chain and all this. And it's precisely for this notion of MEV, right? That like there's going to be this like specialized actor, and I mean there already is. There is a specialized actor called a builder who's like building the block, and from there, you can go further and further up the sort of transaction supply chain is one way to think about it. You start from users who like have some some intent. They want to say, okay, I want to like make this trade on Uniswap. I want to like I don't know. Do something with this liquidation on something like Maker. And so they start there. They then, in many ways, for example, they could gossip into the public mempool. They could also, use like private mempools. They like make transactions that end up somewhere. There's now these actors called searchers, and the searchers are, the way to think about them is like builders, but they're like very specialized for particular types of MEV. And the reason, because you need, the reason this distinction makes sense is because these things are already sort of professionalized and becoming so specialized that it's just like you would focus on one specific task. So like you would like, have like a searcher outfit for like just liquidations or just ARB or, maybe these various long tail strategies, but it starts to look a lot more like traditional trading and things where you do have like very specific, specialized roles. So what these searchers then do is they find these transactions in some way. There's this notion of like order flow. They get to order flow, they like, do their job to like find their specialized MEV capture. And then from there, they would work with builders. A builder then has this more general notion that's saying, okay, I'm getting these like bundles, and a bundle here in this context is just like basically the set of transactions I need to capture some specific MEV from a searcher. So searchers then are sending bundles, builders have bundle flow. Builders then have like another specific job, which is, given all these bundles, I want to make the most valuable block. And the way to think about this, if you're familiar with like a computer science background, is just like the spin packing problem, where it's like I have these like things, there may be different shapes. I have to get them into like a bin of a fixed size, right? Because every block only has so many gas. And so they're running this algorithm to basically optimize putting these bundles into blocks. Builders then make these blocks, which using something like mev-boost are these like various PBS schemes that we can probably get into a little bit. But what they then say is, okay, I'm going to bid for the next block in the chain. Here's this like block that I built. I promise to pay you this much. Generally, we have auctions here, so and anyone can participate as a builder. So now there's like a constant competition for the best block. A validator can then basically pick the best bid, right? They get the block. There's like this little dance with mev-boost so that it's secure. And then ultimately a proposer gets a remote block that they sign in to put onto the chain.
I have a dumb
That
question.
was a lot. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that made sense.
That made a lot of
Sorry.
sense. And it makes me think like, so miners or validators or all parties involved are incentivized to include transactions that allow some additional value to be accrued or extracted or however you want to say it, which mostly I guess are, I'm not an expert, but like probably like DeFi transactions and liquidation, like you were saying, et cetera. Like, does this negatively impact the user experience of people that are just sending simple, like sending ETH transactions and things that have no opportunity to extract or accrue like additional value? Or is there enough block space on the edge that like other transactions that these people don't care about, like will still get included?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple things. Like, that's why I wanted to call out this like local pathway for block building, which is sort of like how it's always been done. That's important. But also too, like, and this maybe gets more to like the philosophical side, but there's some sense in which like everything is a MEV. And so what I mean here is that like even when it's an ETH send, right, I'm still paying some transaction fee, and we can even consider these transaction fees to be the MEV. And so, there's, even for like a really competitive opportunity, like say some like huge liquidation, it's only going to use so much gas in the block. And so, like you're saying, there's usually enough left over because even, I'm only going to have so much sort of like what I was calling bundle flow at any given time. Once I've like built that block there, I'll probably still have plenty of gas left over, and then I'll just grab from the plug mempool, like whatever sources I have to sort of pad out the block. And then, that could be your less time sensitive applications or transactions.
Cool, makes sense. So it's not the case that like blocks are being fully, or at least right now or all the time, being fully packed with like this bundle flow that's incoming that's specifically MEV related, or I guess one definition of MEV related. Yeah.
Right. And it's like kind of hard to say because, what is a bundle and what is not. Like, what you ultimately get on the public chain is just like the blocks. There's like heuristics you can employ. There's like different people like Flashbots who like provide APIs for like things that they do in this process. But you might not be able to understand everything, but yeah, I mean, generally as of today, right, there's not so much sort of like competitive like MEV stuff that like it pushes out other things.
Cool.
And there's also, you know, like just to call it out, there's plenty of validators in the network that aren't doing this at all. They're just sort of running the stock software, building local blocks with the mempool, things like this. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
I know this is a gigantic question, but can you talk about some of the issues that MEV-boost and like the proposer relay design creates?
Sure. So, okay. If you're following along, I laid out this like huge pipeline because there's people who want to use the chain, and then there's, you know, actually building the chain. And there's this like, you know, this process we're seeing play out with like each of these different actors. You know, there's users, searchers, builders, proposers, and these are the validators. So there's this like very sort of, again, pipeline that is evolving and growing as a protocol sees adoption. And this is really cool, but yeah, it means there's like a lot going on. And one thing we want to do is say, okay, like what, like, yeah, is this okay? Because you could imagine that, you know, this process could be happening. There could basically be this whole like industry of MEV evolving, and it could actually have like bad externalities. Well, for many things, but one of them in particular could be the validator set itself, right? You could imagine that this MEV thing becomes so valuable or so important that it's actually, you know, people join Ethereum just for this, and they don't care about like the values that, you know, kind of make Ethereum special or unique. For example, like decentralization, in particular the validator set. So, and yeah, I mean, this is basically, you know, just to get to the chase, like this is kind of exactly the point that like, it turns out that you might have people come just to collect the MEV, and in doing so, they don't care about how decentralized the validator set is. And what this means in practice is that, you know, they can extract more MEV simply by, for example, co-locating with validators. And again, this is because there's like latency involved. And so if you just kind of think about it, you know, if your validator is like 2 continents away and your builder is here, right? Like it obviously makes sense to like smush them together, like physically. Because, you know, the picture we're trying to paint here is that MEV is like not just on chain, but also relative to things off chain. So like you could have prices move, you know, on centralized exchanges, and that then like is some MEV opportunity on chain. And so like in general, the way to think about it is that the more time, the better, right? So like the way the protocol works is that these validators kind of go every 12 seconds. But you could imagine basically, do I wait, you know, a few seconds in to make the block, or do I wait, you know, 12 seconds, 11 seconds, something like this? Like I could wait longer, and in general, right, there'll be more MEV. So this isn't good because it means I actually want to co-locate this like building process with the validator process. And in the limits, what this means is that validators are all in like one data center, right? They're all together. And this like completely erodes the notion of decentralization that is like very important. So that's not good. And the way we want to get around this is having some notion of the protocol of proposer builder separation. So, you know, we put out this pipeline, and I've like tried to paint this picture. And so, you know, it is what it sounds like. You literally are going to, in some way, basically make this, you know, you want some sort of like affordance in the protocol such that you literally separate these roles between proposer and builder. And if you separate them in the right way, with the right incentive structure and all of this, what it means then is that, you know, you don't have this centralizing pressure on the validator set to, you know, be co-located with these builders. And so the way to think about it is like, you have the protocol here, you kind of can put this firewall around the whole thing, and there can be all this crazy MEV stuff happening, and that's fine because the protocol, you know, you won't have any reason for these validators to like be in this, you know, this sort of race to the bottom to all co-locate in one place. And yeah, I think you mentioned mev-boost. I said it a little while ago. The point is that this is an off-chain implementation of this idea. We ultimately want to get to an in-protocol version of this idea, PBS, proposer builder separation. But yeah, like I kind of have been hinting, there's a lot of like incentive issues, and I don't think it's immediately clear exactly what we want. Once you put something in the protocol, it's like very hard to change. If you follow the all core devs calls or any of the protocol process at all, you see it's like very hard to even change anything. And so it's something we have to do very carefully and like with a lot of thought. And so we can say, okay, here's this like research arc to figure out what PPS looks like in the protocol. But in the meantime, well, what are we going to do? Like, will we just sit on our hands and do nothing? Well, of course not. You know, there's other things we can do. And so now we have like off-chain solutions. mev-boost is one of these. So that was the setting. I forgot your exact question. I'm sorry, but I think that was helpful context for your question.
That was definitely helpful context. It was just asking about what the issues that the MEV-boost.
Right. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. So, okay. So we have this thing, this like off-chain PBS, where it's kind of like I was describing. There's an auction for validators. So validators can optionally run the software, right? They can opt in. They don't have to run it, but they can. If they do, they have their local block building pathways. They also have this like access to this remote builder network. And this remote builder network is, it's all these builders and like all this MEV stuff I was talking about. It's a way for builders to connect to proposers. It's a way for a validator to sell their block space to some builder. The builder then has to buy it. There's bids, there's an auction. Okay, so this is here. And it turns out that when we move things off chain, there are some limitations that are like introduced necessarily. And so one of them is like adding this trust assumption that you want builders to be able to, like, you want any builder to work with any proposer, but they kind of mutually don't trust each other, right? They don't, they're mutually distrustful. And so this is a problem because, well, I'll explain why. The reason why is because as a builder, I, work really hard to build this like nice, valuable block, and then I give it to proposer. If I just give it directly to the proposer, and again, remember we have a very like broad distributed validator set. Any sort of quote, anyone could be a validator. And so you could imagine someone who wants to pull off the following attack where they become a validator just for like a month until they get like a very valuable block. And then rather than, have the builder be compensated for their work via, some tip, some fee like this, they basically could just take the whole entire block that was built for them and just sort of republish it as their own. And so, we want to stop proposers from being able to like steal MEV in this way. And so mev-boost, again, is this off-chain answer to this problem. There's this like commit reveal schema basically that says, okay, builder says, I'll give you this block, but I won't tell you what it is. The validator says, yeah, okay, this looks good. And then they sign off on it. And the way the protocol works is once they signed off on the thing, then they basically can't steal the MEV. It's like committed that this particular one will be on chain. And if you want the full details, there's like slashing rules that ensure that there's penalty against stealing in this way. So the point is they don't trust each other. You need some way to like coordinate them. And there's a number of things you like just, at least in the current iteration, you need everyone involved to just kind of trust everyone else. And so to kind of facilitate this or like broker this exchange, there's this other actor called a relay. And the relay does a lot of things to like, the relay is like this trusted party. If you follow this at all, you've been like hearing about censoring relays and all this stuff. So a couple of things the relays do, like, for example, I just said the builder provides a block and it says, okay, here's my bid. I will pay you this much to include my block, but I won't tell you what the block is. And so again, you can imagine another attack where as a builder, I just like go and make some random garbage, and then the proposer, they sign off on it, they're committed to it, but ultimately the block's invalid. So like that's really bad. So one thing this trusted relay does is like verify all the blocks from builders. And of course, they're trusted not to like steal MEV or like play these different games. If we ever find out a relay is doing this, I assume that there'll be like a firestorm on Twitter and everyone will stop using them, hopefully. But yeah, so the point is that there's this relay actor. It's like very trusted, and it's necessary for a lot of like the current iteration to work. But also, there's a lot of trust you place in them. For example, you could have like we mentioned this like censorship issue where like you could imagine then that like there are relays who are filtering for various reasons. Like again, these relays are generally like very doxed entities. They have to follow the jurisdictions of wherever they are in the world. And because of that, there's like sometimes things they'd have to do that maybe don't go like explicitly to the Ethereum protocol, but they feel like they need to do for some reason. So this is like the big one. This is probably the hot topic that everyone's been talking about or thinking about recently. Yeah.
Real quick, because I do want to get into talking about MEV-rs. Burrs had a question. She asked, is there any sense of the general location of relays and builders at the moment?
Sorry?
Is there a general sense of like where relays and builders are located at the moment?
Yeah. So it's not super clear, I'd say. There's maybe, I think, around 7 now relays, and generally things are very early. And so I think what we're seeing a lot of is like builder relay co-location, where like you could imagine you could have like any builder give blocks to any relay, and then any validator talks to any relay, right? It could be this sort of like multiplex market thing. I think most of the relays are also kind of running their own builder right now. And I think only the Flashbots one is sort of has permissionless building. I think so. There's one that just launched, I don't know, like last week or something, called the Relayor, and the Relayor I think has permissionless building. We should double check. But either way, yeah, they're generally all over. I mean, we would hope they're all over. For many reasons, I think it's to the operator's advantage to not be super public about like where they are. So like, for example, this Relayor dropped, and so I like immediately like tried to like do the geolocation of the IP, and it just goes to like Cloudflare DNS. So like, who knows, right? That's just like a frontier layer. So they could be wherever, and yeah, I don't think we generally know where our relays, where our builders, and there's reasons for them to kind of keep that more private.
I love that you immediately tried to figure out where they were. Cool. How does MEV-rs fit into all of this?
Right. So yeah, maybe we'll just like close the loop here. I just said a bunch of like random words about Ethereum and MEV and all this stuff. Hopefully it was helpful. And the bottom line is that there's this like very exciting ecosystem developing, like sort of within this, like, it's almost like a subculture within Ethereum. There's like all this exciting stuff happening. And so, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is like, there's a lot to do. Like this mev-boost idea kind of really just launched with the merge. So, it's just, barely so many weeks old. And yeah, there's a lot to do. One thing to do is honestly just like have more open source tooling and infrastructure for everything we've been talking about. And so MEV-rs is this open source project I've started that sets out to do just this. Initially it was just like, okay, I want to understand the problem space better. And so I was like, I'll just like re-implement mev-boost. Because currently it's really just this thin layer multiplexing the different relays a validator wants to talk to. Which basically just says, okay, when it's my turn, I ask all the relays, I just go on the list, I ask them all for like the best bid. The simple thing to do is just pick the most valuable bid and go with that one, right? So it's actually like it's a very lightweight piece of software. So I was like, I'll just like implement it. Why not? But then, yeah, again, it's sort of just like pulling the thread. It's like, okay, well, there's this mev-boost component. Well, now we have this like relay ecosystem. So we need like many relays. You can imagine even there's like open source tooling for builders, because again, there's like a whole piece to this puzzle where we actually want the barrier to entry for building to be as low as possible. Because again, that helps on various fronts, just in terms of making the ecosystem like more permissionless and sort of more equitable. So that's really important. And yeah, so it started with just like, all right, MEV-boost, just like understand it. And now it's just like a much bigger suite of software around all the things we've been talking about. So yeah, to the extent that anyone is interested or wants to contribute, please go there. I'm helping with like a different EF program called the Protocol Fellowship. And that's like one of the sort of topics there is like to work on this stuff essentially. So give me like a day or two and there'll be like, I think much more structured information around contribution. And, I want to make a pass on like sort of like issue management on the repo and all these sorts of things. So basically, there'll be hopefully a lot more structure soon.
Awesome. I want to say something about the Ethereum Protocol Fellowship. For anybody watching, it is a completely permissionless program. They are running this thing where they gave some people fellowships, but you can go to the office hours, you can go to all of the things that they're publicly available, and the mentorship is free, and the mentorship is it is ridiculous that they're doing this because it's like a pipeline to the protocol level Ethereum devs, which is invaluable. And so it only started last week. So
yeah, I just started. And yeah, this is one around like MEV software. I'm also sort of have a vertical around my clients. So if you wanna even understand what that means, like, yeah, please take a look. I'm not sure how we can like get links to this program or something to the audience, but that'd be good if we could. And yeah, I'll just go ahead and show my Twitter. Like if you go, check my Twitter account, I'll post when I have updates here. But cool. Yeah, it's a very cool program, and basically, yeah, there's just like a whole bunch of software to help things, and yeah, help would be great.
What's your Twitter handle if people want to follow along? Also, definitely send us all the links, and we'll distribute it to everybody in the GitPOAP community.
Great. R Alex Stokes is the Twitter handle. I'll type it in the Zoom chat. I don't know if that's helpful for anyone. But,
I just dropped both his Twitter and the GitHub for the Ethereum Protocol Fellowship in the YouTube chat, so check there.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
And I should point out,
just
I don't think those actually show
one more thing, just to echo what Nick was saying. Like, there were sort of like, I guess these like stipends or something awarded for some people. But yeah, it is like permissionless in the sense that like that's kind of the only distinction. Like literally everything else is like open and available for participation. So definitely take a look if you're interested.
Cool. I know you said you would have more information and more organization about it soon, but do you see any like low-hanging fruit in MEV-rs for people to contribute to?
Yeah, it's a great question. You just front-run me a little bit. Let's see. So what would be good? I mean, testing, honestly, like that's a big one. It's pretty light on tests. So if you want to I think I have one test, for example, checking the like bid selection algorithm, right? So like if I get a bunch of bids, like pick the most valuable one. So there could be something there. The next like arc I want to push is like actually building a nice relay, because this is now becoming like, even a month or two ago, it wasn't as clear that we would like need really good relay software. I think now the situation has changed. Even if, me or someone can directly run a relay for like various, a whole host of other reasons, I think having the open source software available is like really valuable. For example, someone can take this and fork this and do their own thing. So I guess I would direct people to look at the relay implementation. There's a bunch of dozens to do, like for example, like validating blocks, like following consensus, like there's a bunch there. Again, literally give me like a day or two and there'll be more. But so just dive in. I mean, another thing, maybe this is like a helpful sort of call outs is looking at the builder specs. So there's an Ethereum repo on GitHub, this builder specs. And a lot of that is looking at like the general API we use that does sort of the proposer builder separation today. So starting there is good, just to like familiarize yourself more with the space and like how the pieces fit together. And I'll say more soon.
Cool. Sorry the comments are turned off on the YouTube channel, guys. I'll figure that out for next time. This is POAP's YouTube channel. Cool. Do we want to get people their POAPs? So to get the POAPs, you're going to need to go into Burrs. Let me know if I say this all correctly. You're going to need to go into the GitPOAP Discord. So that's gitpoap.io/Discord. Is that right, Colfax? Is that our...
Yes, gitpoap.io/Discord. While we're talking about Discord, can you actually just paste all the links that you pasted in YouTube into the general channel in our Discord? Somebody's also asking for the Protocol Fellowship.
Yeah,
one.
For sure.
Cool.
For sure. I can't say enough cool things about that Protocol Fellowship. I can't believe more people aren't taking advantage of it. It's perfect for a Web 2 dev who wants to transfer to Web 3, because there's an excess of Web 2 devs, and you don't have to be like a Solidity expert or a Web 3 expert already. You just start working on something. Somebody will help you. Somebody will be stoked that you're working on things, and you might get GitPOAPs. Okay, we are, I just dropped the Protocol Fellowship link in the general chat.
Awesome.
And if you go to the Join Guild channel, you can hit Join Guild. And Burrs, is there something we need to drop in there?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it right now, and I guess we'll probably leave a link up there till around 12:05 Eastern time.
Cool. So you guys will have 10 minutes to join the guild and get your POAP. The POAP is going to be $2, and this $2 goes to a fund that GitPOAP is deciding what to do with. One of three things that we are thinking is we're either going to sponsor a developer to go to a conference, and we're going to have them walk around with us in tow and introduce them to people, or we're going to give it to the Gitcoin grants, to a Gitcoin grants round, to the matching pool. And I forgot what our third option was. Colfax, do you remember? Anyway, it's going to go to a public good. We're going to be very vocal about what we're doing with it. And we're hoping that people who hold this POAP will have a say in what we're doing with these funds.
Yeah, we might just actually send it to a project that we're supporting on GitPOAP, to the GitPOAP holders, to infuse them with a little bit of capital. So yeah, we're still deciding. We'll keep posted on what we're going to do there.
Great.
Sweet. So it looks like the POAP minting is live. I am doing it myself right now. I saw another question come in on the YouTube channel, and I just thought of one other thing. So just on the high level, we talked a lot about MEV, and then we dove into MEV-rs. Can you just give a quick synopsis, Alex, of like what exactly MEV-rs is again, just like in 2 sentences?
Sure.
Yeah, and then that could be just like a good snippet to end with. And then the last thing is, if I did want to test MEV-rs and I did find something that either was wrong or something I thought should be improved, where do I go?
Right. Okay. So the first one is just, like, what is this thing? Generally, I think the framing now is it's a toolkit, an open source toolkit for working with a whole host of like MEV, issues and problems on Ethereum. And I want it very much to be the place to go to, for example, if you want to start an experiment with like a builder on the network, you could start here. If you want to like run a relay or contribute to that, you could start here. I do, ultimately want it to be production ready, but you could also imagine it's sort of this like test bed for more research, experimented ideas. There's a bunch of things that we didn't get to talk about around improving mev-boost and this out of protocol PBS. And this could be a great sort of sandbox for experimenting with some more research ideas there. If you, please take a look. If you want to get involved, DM me. Twitter is probably the right place for that right now. And I can help a little more with guiding like how to get started. If you just are looking yourself, you can just clone the repo. If you want to like run the test or something, probably just cargo test. It's software in Rust, so you can just cargo test and let it go. And otherwise, if you find something like generally, again, this is like an open source project, like it's on GitHub, so all the usual like workflows are there. Like if you find something, open an issue, look at the open issues, chime in if you want. If you find something and like can even fix it and like open a PR, that's like even great, even better. And generally that's probably the way to dive in. And
Cool.
Awesome. Super helpful. I just dropped the link to MEV-rs in our general channel as well.
Anybody else here have any questions for Alex Stokes before we let him go? Sarcastic or otherwise?
This is the time for the roast.
Just a thank you. This was all really informative.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you everyone for having me. Thank you for coordinating. And I'm really excited to see where GitPOAP goes. And I think this could be really helpful for open source software on Ethereum generally. So very exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. Thanks for the YouTube channel for watching.
Thanks, everyone.